So, good morning, everyone. We will start the session sharp at 10 a.m. Thank you. A very warm good morning to everyone who have joined. I mean, I could see few people in Zoom, and also there have been few people in our YouTube channel. So this is the second part of the session with respect to the core Java interview questions. So last Saturday, 10 a.m., we had part 1, where we had discussed most of the topics, I mean the basic topics, which is being asked in almost every interviews, right? I mean basically about the OOPS concepts, like about constructor, method, string, etc. But again, there were few topics I think which was missed out on the last week. So what we're gonna do today is like we'll be catching up with those topics which was missed out in the last session, and then we're gonna kickstart with today's question. So today we'll be focusing mainly on collections, thread, JDBC, and a few concepts like singleton, etc. So welcome everyone, and let me welcome Adra for today's session. So Adra, all towards you. You can start the session for the day. I think you're on mute.
Hello?
Yeah. We can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, so as said, before we start with the new topics, we would cover some questions we had from the last session. So one question we had was like, what's the difference between constructor and method? Because in the last session, we had discussed a lot about constructor, this, super, and all. So maybe this question was left out and this has been asked a lot. So starting with the difference between the constructor and method. So constructor, okay. So to start with method is a set of code, a piece of code, which is used in a class to do some functionality. And constructor can be considered as a special type of method. So what this constructor do is, mainly constructor is used to initialize the object. That is, if you have the class variables and all. So this constructor will be used to initialize the values for those variables. And the method will be used to do any specific operation or task. Okay. And the constructor doesn't have any return type. And the method will be having a return type. Either it will be void or it will be what is a type, like int, string, etc. For constructor, it will be just public and the class name. So there will be no return type. Then constructor is invoked implicitly when the object is being created for that class. There is no other way to invoke a constructor. It is implicitly invoked when the object is created. For method, it is invoked explicitly, like whether it is a non-static or static method. Accordingly, we will be calling that particular method. And the constructor will be having the same name as that of the class. For method, it can be any name based on the function, like get data, calculate salary. Likewise, based on the functionality that method is doing, we'll be providing the name for that. But for constructor, the name will be always the same name as that of the class. Then constructor, as we said, it is invoked when we create an object. Okay, so if I'm creating an object for a class, for that object, only once the constructor will be invoked. Again, if the constructor need to be invoked, we need to create another object. So for one object, only once the constructor will be invoked. Whereas for a method, for an object, we can call the method anytime we want. For example, if I'm having a method called calculate and my object is student s equal to new student, I can call s dot calculate any n number of times. Wherever I want, I can call. But for constructor, when I create student s equal to new student, only for the object s, that is the only time where constructor is being called. Then for constructor, there is a concept called as default constructor. That is, if in my class, I'm not providing any constructor, that is, I'm not providing any no argument constructor or parameterized constructor, JVM will be inserting a default constructor on behalf. But for method, there is no such concept. In no way the JVM will be inserting a method for you. If a class needs to have method, we need to provide it. So these are the basic difference between a constructor and a method. Then another question we had was regarding to string. Okay. Like about the string creation and also why string is immutable. That one question we have received. So it's like there are two ways in which we can create a string in Java. So first is like string s1 equal to abc, that is using the string literal. And next is by using the new keyword, string s equal to new string of. Okay, there are two ways in which we can create a string. So when we use in the code, we don't feel any difference when we use the strings like this. But internally, how it is implemented or what is happening inside the memory, there is a lot of difference between these two scenarios. So what happens is like, whenever we create a string, it will be created in the heap. Memory will be having heap stack, different memory areas. And when we create a string, it will be created in the heap area. So when we create using literal, that is string s1 equal to abc, what happens is inside the heap, there is a memory area called as string pool or string literal pool or string constant pool. So when we create using a literal, that string value will be stored in the string pool, which is inside the heap. So when we create like this, what it will, for example, the first line is string s1 equal to abc. Here first, it will be checked. It will check in the string pool whether a string abc is already present. If it is not present, it will create a, in a particular location, it will create the value abc, and my variable s1 will be pointing to that. Okay, and the next statement, that is string s2 equal to new string of abc. When we use a new keyword to create a string, what happens is the string will be created outside the string pool inside the heap. It will be created outside the string pool. So here you can see the ABC is created outside the string pool. Again, my third sentence is string s3 equal to ABC. So here it is created using a literal. So what happens is it will check the string pool whether already a string ABC is present. If it is present, my variable s3 will also be pointing to the same location. In the case of string literal, a new string will be created only if it is not present in the string pool. If that same string is already present, the variable will be pointing to the same location. Then if again string s4 equal to new string of abc. So here again it is a repetition. But since it is outside the string pool, again a new string abc will be created. The checking will be done only inside the string pool when we create using the string literal. Okay. And then what is the use of intern? Intern is like when I'm creating a string using the new string, it will be created outside the string pool. So the question may come like, if there is a way that I can put back it into the string pool, which is inside, which is outside the string pool, is there any way so that I can move that string to the string pool? So that option is the intern method. If I call intern on a string which is created using the new string, it will be put back into the string pool. That is the intern. So what happens here is you can see that string s1, s3, then s5, all are pointing to the same memory location. So if from s1, if a string is immutable, okay, but if string is mutable, what happens is like, if s1 is changing this particular value, s3 and s5 also will be getting the new updated value, which is wrong. Okay, string s1 made it as abcd. So since all are pointing to the same location, the other variables will also be receiving the updated value as abcd. But for others, the actual value required was abc. So since it is being cached in the string pool and it is being shared, if one string is or one thread is changing the value, others will also get affected. So that's why string is made immutable. Since it is being shared between different variables, if one variable is changing it, others will also get affected. So to avoid those things, string is made immutable. So when we make any change, what happens is, if I want to add D to ABC and point S1 to that, what happens is this ABC will be staying in memory as such. And a new string ABCD will be created, and my variable S1 will now point to ABCD. This is what happens. The string is immutable. It will stay in the memory until it is being garbage collected. Until then, it will be staying in the memory. Whatever modifications we are making on that particular string, that string won't be affected. Instead, new strings will be created based on that. So this is about the string creation and why string is immutable. This is one major reason why string is immutable. There are certain other factors like performance, security, and all those things comes into picture, but I'm not going that much deep. This is the main reason why string is immutable. Then I would answer one question. So one other question was regard to inheritance, like why multiple inheritance is not supported. So the answer is like it creates an ambiguity, and this is named as a diamond problem because of the shape it is having. Okay, so for example, I'm having a class D, which is a child class. It has a method void show, and there are two parents for this class D, that is B and C. Here what happens is, in B and C, I'm having the same method. The same method in the sense the return type, the name parameters, everything is same. So in this case, while I want to call this parent class method from my child class, from D, if I'm trying to call this method, since we are not creating object for the parent class, we are not creating any object for the parent class. From the child class, we can directly access the methods and variables from the parent class. So when I try to access this method from my child class, there is an ambiguity like which parent class method needs to be called, whether it has to call from B or C. If again there is another level A, again there is a confusion like which method I need to call. So the compiler cannot distinguish between this, which parent class method I need to call. So to avoid this confusion, we are not supporting multiple inheritance. This is the ambiguity problem. Like if there is more than one parent and same method in all these parents, it is difficult to understand from which class the method needs to be called. So to avoid this, multiple inheritance is not supported with the concept of inheritance. It's only supported with the concept of interface in Java. So then,
yeah, I think that was pretty much right. I mean, these were the main topics which we missed out, right?
yeah.
So this will be the today's question. So as we followed in the last time also, we gonna give audience choice also. I mean, the people who are watching in YouTube, they can start giving the questions. I mean, just go through these questions and you can just type in the chat, in the comment section. I mean, whichever question you want to discuss. So as a kickstart, we will start with the question number 53. And then you can just type in the question number. Who have been watching it, they can just type in the question number which they want to discuss it. So we'll start with 53 itself, about the JDBC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to start with JDBC, JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. The name itself says that is the JDBC is the mechanism, or it's the API through which we can connect to a database from the Java code. So this JDBC API provides the mechanisms to connect to a particular database, query the tables, then manipulate the data which we received. All those things are possible with the help of JDBC. Coming to JDBC. Okay. So these are the main 5 steps we need for database connectivity. So first we need to register the driver. Then actually there are different drivers which is provided by JDBC. We need to register the particular driver we need. Then we need to create the connection with the database. then create statement, then we need to execute the queries, and finally we need to close the connection which we have established. We don't leave the connection as such and go out. We need to close the connection once it's established. So these are the major 5 steps in database connectivity. So first thing is register driver. So how we do is class.phony. This is the method from the class. So, and we provide which is the driver, which is a JDBC driver we are going to use. We need to mention it. Then next step is create connection. We need to create a connection object. So this is how it is done. Connection, we create a connection object, driver manager dot get connection, and we provide the database URL, the username and the password for that. This is how we establish a connection with a particular database with the connection object. Then the statement, we create a statement. There are different types of statement. So this statement is used to execute a with the help of the statement class only, we are creating the queries and all. Executing the queries and all, we have to need the statement class. So statement, then there are different types of statement which we will discuss further. So this is how you create a statement object. Then we need to execute the queries. So how we execute queries, the statement dot execute query of, we provide the, which is our query. So there are 2 types, that is execute query and execute update. So for queries like select and all, we will be using the execute query. And for update operations and all, we will be using the execute update method for that. So this result set is like, we will be getting a number of rows from the database. Based on the query, there can be 1 or more rows. So to iterate it, to manipulate that, we are having the result set. What we get when we execute a query is a result set. That is, if it is returning some rows from the queries, it will be held in a result set. So here example is like, I'm executing select star from people. So it will be getting n number of records from the table people. And here execute query of SQL I have provided. So my result, all the rows will be fetched in the result set. And I can iterate the result set and print the values. Then for update queries and all, what happens is we need to know how many rows are affected. So it will be returning an integer value. So here it is like execute update of SQL, that is update query has been fired. So some rows will be affected. So if maybe one row will be affected. So I'll be getting the count as 1 so that I know that the row has been updated. So these are the 2 queries. We have execute query and execute update based on the type of query. And the result will be held in the result set. If it is providing rows from that, it will be held in the result set, and the result set will be iterated to get the individual column values. And the final step would be, we'll be closing the connection with the database. And these things, there are chances that there can be exceptions. So this will be held in the try catch block, and since close connection, it needs to be done, it will be in the finally block. This try catch finally will be discussed further, just mentioned it. Okay, that's about JDBC, how we establish connection, the different steps through which we establish a database connection. So shall I move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, so who've been watching it, I mean, YouTube or in Zoom, which question you want to be discussed? I mean, can you please type in the question number? I mean, we are trying to help you guys. I mean, like you might be attending multiple interviews and there will be many questions which you would like to get answered. Yeah, so I could see few question number 59, 58. People watching in YouTube, I mean, we really appreciate if you can just mention the question number. I don't see anyone in YouTube responding. Yeah, we could see questions in Zoom. Okay. All right. So let's start with 58 then. I think 2 or 3 people have been mentioning it. Yeah, we'll discuss it then. Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the 58 then.
Okay, so that is about exception
Exception
propagation.
handling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
maybe,
let's start with the exception handling, and I
yeah,
think the next thing everyone asking is about the collection. So we'll start just like that. Yeah.
okay. So moving on to exception. Okay, so exception means it's an unwanted or unexpected event which happened in between the flow of execution. So our program is executing in a smooth order and some unexpected event happened. That is the exception. That is the normal flow of the program execution is interrupted. That is exception. So why we need a exception handling mechanism is like when an exception is raised, it will be throwing errors in a way that a technical person will be able to understand that. So if a person is using a common man is using, and if he is getting some Java related technical error message, it doesn't mean anything to him, or it doesn't make sense to that person. So to make a exception appear user friendly, or it make it in a way that the user understands it, we are using the exception handling instead of avoiding all the technicalities and providing it in a common man's language. We are using the exception handling mechanism. So here you can see, like, for exception handling, we are having error and exception which comes from the throwable. So this is a parent one. Throwable is the parent, and the again object class is the parent of all the classes. And for exception, the parent is the throwable. And we have error, then we have the exception, and from exception we have the runtime exception as well as other exception. So one question you will get from exception handling will be like, what is checked and unchecked exception? So here you can see, like, checked exceptions are the ones which are marked in green. So that is which comes under the exception class, except the runtime exception, which comes under throwable exception and other exceptions, which are other than runtime exceptions. These comes under the checked exception. So these are the compile time exceptions. Okay, other exceptions which are the checked one. It is called as checked because these are checked at the compile time. For example, it is the file not found, IO exceptions, SQL exception. Those are the other exceptions which come under checked exceptions. Then unchecked exceptions are the red ones, that is the error and the runtime exceptions. These are known as the unchecked exceptions, like null pointer for errors which are out of memory. And error means this is irrecoverable, because out of memory and all, we cannot recover from that. We need to stop the application and handle that. It happens when there is a size limitation with the heap and all those things. We will be getting the out of memory heap size and all. So this needs to be handled. This is a error and this is a runtime exception. This comes under the unchecked exception. And to handle exception, we have some keywords, that is try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. These are the 5 keywords which are used for exception. So try block is the, like, if a code can raise an exception, we have a doubt that it may raise an exception, we will include that code in try block. So
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is it possible for you to zoom a little bit the screen?
Is it okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So try is like if a code may raise an exception, we doubt that a code may raise an exception, we will include such code in try. So an exception is being raised from the try block. So we need to catch the exception which is raised from the try block. For that, we have the catch block. So in that catch block only, we'll be displaying how the message has to be shown, or whatever it is, it will be handled in the catch. How to handle that exception, what to display for that exception, all this will be done in the catch block. Then comes a finally block. So what happens when an exception is raised is like the next set of instructions what we have written after, if for example, if my line number 10 raised an exception, then the rest 11, 12 and all won't be executed. The execution will be passed to the catch block. So further instructions, further code which are written after a piece of code which raised an exception, it won't be executed. So there may be some cases like some code needs to be executed whether or not an exception is raised. In that case, those piece of code will be included in the finally block. Whether exception is raised, if exception is raised, then also that code needs to be executed. If it is not raised also, it should be executed. Such code will be placed in the finally block. Usually, the cleanup code will be placed in the finally. For example, we said about the JDBC, no? So there, even if an exception is raised, we need to close the connection. After executing successfully, also we need to close the connection. If anything happened in between, then also we need to close the connection. So that close connection code will be coming in the finally block. So that is a finally block. Then throw and throws. These are two keywords. Like throw is used to explicitly throw an exception. With the try block, we are not throwing an exception. The JVM throw the exception. But if I want to throw an exception explicitly, I will be using the throw keyword. It will be used between the code. Like from the code statement, if I want to throw an exception explicitly, I will be using the throw keyword. And throws is a keyword. It is also used to declare exception. That is, it is used along with the method name. For example, a method throws null pointer exception. Likewise, we'll be using the throws keyword. So one second. Okay. So this is an example of a try, catch, and finally. So here division by 0 exception would be raised since we are trying to divide it by 0. So this code is being included in the try block because there can be an exception from this block. So it is included in the try. And then we have the catch block, which is this division by 0 is an arithmetic exception. So we have the catch block with the type of exception and the exception object. And here we display what the message needs to be shown. That is, number should not be divided by 0. And the finally block, if we want to display or execute any code, we'll have it in the finally block. So we told like exception is raised or not, the finally block will be executed. So one scenario in which the finally block won't execute is if we have the code system.exit in the try block. If I have a system.exit in the try block, then no matter finally won't be executed. Okay. Then throws. Is my screen visible now?
Yeah,
Eclipse.
the Eclipse. Yeah.
Okay. So we told about try, catch, finally. So for a try block, we can have multiple catch. It's not necessary that we need to have only single catch. We can have multiple catch statement. So in this example, I can have. So you can see I'm having an arithmetic exception, then I have null pointer exception, then I have the catch, which is the exception. That is a topmost class. So our try can have multiple catch blocks. It can be written like individual catch blocks like this, or else it can be combined as well. In a single catch, using the pipe symbol, we can separate between the different exception classes and we can provide multiple exceptions in a single catch itself. Okay. So here and the finally block. Okay, here another question that can come is like, here you can see that I have included the topmost class, that is the exception class, which is the generic exception class as in the last catch block. When I'm having multiple catch blocks, what happens is if I'm placing this catch block as a first one, here you can see that what happens here is unreachable code problem. Okay, what happens is this exception, arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, all comes under the exception class. So if I'm giving exception as a first one, it will be handled with the exception itself. Though it has a matching one, which is provided down, it won't be going that side because the first one itself will be capable of handling that. So when we write the generic exception class in the first catch block, what happens is it creates an unreachable code problem. Even if there is a matching exception, that will not be reachable. So when we are having multiple catch blocks, we have to provide the generic catch as the last catch. The specific one needs to be provided first. Then coming to throw keyword, here you can see like from the method, inside the method, I explicitly thrown a exception. In this case, you can see that here we are not explicitly throwing any exception. It is all it's thrown internally, implicitly by the JVM itself. If I want to explicitly throw an exception from the code, I'll be using the throw. Throw new, the type of exception. And the throws is like, you can see with the method, this open file throws IO exception. Read file throws IO exception. The throws is used along with the method and it declares the method. We are not throwing an exception object here. We are just declaring that this method would throw and might throw an IO exception. Here what I've said is to throw a arithmetic exception. It will be throwing an arithmetic exception when divide by 0 is called. Here, if this file is not found, here we are opening a file, we are trying to read a file. So if this file is not present, it will throw an IO exception. If it is present, it won't throw. So this is the different, like how we use throw and throws. So the difference.
Yeah, maybe we can also discuss about with respect to the difference between throw and throws. That's a frequently asked question, and also I think many people do have the confusion with respect to final, finally, and finalize. So I think we can just discuss those two differences and then move to the next set of questions which the audience wants. So let's discuss these two part and then we can move on. Yeah.
So throw, as we said, it's used to explicitly throw an exception, and throws it is used to declare an exception, the code. Then for exception propagation, it is propagated using throw keyword. It has no connection with the throws. Then throw is followed by an instance. Here you can create an instance in the sense we are throwing an object, new arithmetic exception. It's followed by a class. Just we are declaring that it throws the arithmetic exception. Here we are declaring the class and here we are creating the object and throwing it. Then it is used within a method, like inside the code. From the code only, we'll be throwing the exceptions. We're using the keyword throw, and it is used along with the method signature. That is a method name throws the type of exception. Then you cannot throw multiple exceptions. Like throw, I can only specify a particular type. Throw new arithmetic exception or throw new null pointer exception. Likewise, only I can use. But for method, I can declare more than one. Like my method M throws arithmetic exception, SQL exception. There is more than one exception can be declared with the word throws. While we are throwing an exception, we can only throw a single exception object. That is the difference between throw and throws. Then coming to finally, and finalize. That's the most commonly asked question. So final is a keyword, like it is applicable to variable, method, and class. So, and the question comes like, what is the difference between final, finally, and finalize? For final, we need to answer all these three things. That is, when we declare a variable as final, it acts as a constant. That is, the value cannot be changed. When a method is being declared as final, we cannot override that particular method. in my parent class, if there is a final method, I cannot override that in my child class. Then final classes. If a class is declared as final, we cannot inherit that class. That is the use of final keyword. A final variable is a constant. Final method to prevent overriding, and final class, it is used to prevent the inheritance. Then next thing is a finally. Finally is a keyword used in the exception handling mechanism, and finally has the finally is the block of code which is executed whether or not an exception is raised. Then finalize. Finalize is a method which is used in garbage collection. So JVM handles the garbage collection. We don't need to provide any mechanism to handle the garbage collection. It will be handled by the JVM itself. So before JVM does the garbage collection, it calls the finalize method to do the cleanup processing, which is a step ahead of which needs to be performed first. The cleanup needs to be performed first, and then the garbage collection will be done. So that garbage collect, for that purpose, this finalize method is being used. It is used in the garbage collection. It is called to do the cleanup processing before the garbage collection is executed. We need not call it. The JVM will be calling the finalize method. So that is a difference between final, finally, and finalize.
Yeah, Adriya, there is one more question which most of the people get perplexed. I mean, what sort of code do we really put in the finally block? I mean, like what are the kind of examples? I mean, that we usually put.
Okay, let me check.
Yeah, I think this program itself will be helpful. I think this will connect with our JDBC question also, which we discussed earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So here you can see that there is a chance that it can throw an SQL exception. So here that is mentioned along with the method. That is, there is a chance that this piece of code can raise an exception, an SQL exception. So here I'm okay. This is trying to connect with the MS access. Okay, this particular code JDBC connection, it is with the MS access. So here I have the connection object being created, that is driver manager dot get connection. The particular database is being set. There is no username password, so this is just the URL which is being mentioned. Then we have created the statement class. Then person is a table in that particular database, and we are having the select query, and it is being held in the result set. And to display the name, we are iterating the result set. We are iterating the result set and printing the values of each rows. From each row, each column will be accessed and the value will be printed. So here the chances that it can raise an SQL exception. So this is catches there. And then we have the finally block. Finally block usually contains the cleanup codes. Cleanup code is like when the connection is established with a particular database, after my all the operations, this I have executed the query, I have displayed the data and all, I need to close the connection with that particular database. So that is a cleanup code. It needs to be done. Even if an exception is raised from here, I need to close the connection. Even if the code executed successfully and I got the result, I need to close the connection with that database. So those code will be placed in the finally block because it ensures that it is executed. So that connection, close connection code will be placed over in the finally block. So here a check is given because only if the connection is established, we need to close it. So that is a check over here. It is not null. If it is not null, means there has been a connection. So then close it. So these type of code comes in the finally block. Hope that is clear.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. I mean, so let's move to the questions. Okay, so the next set of questions I think people have asked about is with respect to the collection framework, right? So yeah.
Okay, so the collection framework. The collections API, it provides a set of classes and interface. You can say that it provides set of classes and interface, which makes it easier to work with a collection of objects. Since now we were creating like single objects and all, so if I want to use multiple, one or more objects, I need to handle collection of objects. Then we make use of the collections API. So if I'm having a collection of data, there needs to be operations like searching, sorting, inserting it into it, like inserting in the middle, inserting at the end, likewise, then deletion. Then I can do different manipulations on the data in the collection. So there are different things I can do on a collection of objects. So to make all these tasks easier, we have provided with the collection API. So here you can see like the blue colored things are the interface and the green is a class which implements those interfaces. So mainly there are two types of interface in the collection. That is, the one is a collection and then is a map. So what comes under two group of interface, that is collection interface and map interface. And inside the collection comes the interfaces, list, set, queue, and in map we have map and sorted map and the different tables as well. So first thing what we look is, what is a list? So what is a list? In list is a collection of objects which is, it maintains the, or it is an ordered collection. That is, it maintains the order in which the elements are being inserted. List is an ordered collection, and also in list we can have duplicate values. I can insert n number of duplicate values in the list. Okay, so it is an ordered collection. That is, it maintains the insertion order and also duplicate values are allowed. So next is set interface. Set interface is an unordered collection. There is no insertion order maintained in the set, and also it does not allow duplicates. List allow duplicates, but set doesn't allow any duplicate values. Then coming to map. Map, here in list and set we are inserting only the values, but in map what we have is a map is a key value pair. That is, we will be having a key and corresponding to that key we will be having a value. So into a map we are inserting a key value pair, and I can retrieve that key value pair as a single object, and as well as I can retrieve the keys and the values from the map. So these are the commonly used interface, that is list, set, and map. And maybe the questions would be coming mainly from list, set, and map as well. Then also we have stack and queue. Stack is the classical data structure, like we have a stack of plates and all. So stack is like one above the other, we'll be placing the, like how we arrange a plate, that is a stack actually. So that on top of one, we will be arranging, we'll be inserting the data and we will be popping it from the top itself, inserting to the top and taking it from the top. That is a stack. Then queue is the normal queue what we see. That is, we will be inserting from the back and we will be taking it from the front. That is a queue, stack and queue. Then also something you can see in the picture, that is, it comes from the IEEE class. Actually, it comes from the IEEE interface. So since it is coming from IEEE only, we are able to loop it. We are able to use a for each loop and iterate it. That is, all the collection classes come from the IEEE interfaces. Okay, so then moving on.
So Adra, let's give a chance to everyone. So which area have you all got questions? I mean, which area you would like to get discussed? Is it list or map? I mean, just want to give an audience choice right now. I want people in YouTube or even in Zoom. I mean, which area have you found it more difficult to handle? Is it the list or is it the map? Okay, can you just type in all, please? I mean, I know that these topics are little difficult and it's also a little hard. But I mean, if you guys can just mention which area you had been the most challenging part, then we can just try to sort out that part. Is it list or map? Which one you guys want to get discussed? Is there any choice? Anyone? We don't see any comments this time. Okay. Someone is telling map. Okay. Anyone else? Last time I think we had a lot of audience interaction. But this time I think the topics are also a little hard. So yeah, so it's saying both map. Okay. All right, Adra. Yeah, let's move on. I mean, it's going to be both, and that's what the audiences are going on. Yeah, let's go into the current plan.
Okay. So should I go for the generics?
Yeah,
Or...
we'll come to generics and then we'll discuss the same things.
Okay. So here you can see the example for list as well. So, okay. Here the first statement, list equal to new array list. This is one way in which we can create a list. List, that is the interface, equal to new array list. Array list is a class which implements the list interface. So the method used to insert value into list is add. We'll provide as add, and to retrieve the value we have the get, list.get. So here what happens is we say that it is a collection of object. So if I'm not giving any particular type, what happens is I can have different type of object into a single list. Here you can see I have first one, I am having an integer. Second, I have added a string. If I'm having a student class, I can even insert the student object. So what happens here is that there is no restriction in this particular list. That is, it will be only particular type of object. So what happens here is like when we are trying to retrieve the value. Suppose if I'm inserting 100 values in a list like this, and I'm inserting different type of objects. To retrieve the data from that, it would be difficult. I cannot remember all the positions at which I have inserted string or whatever I have inserted. I cannot remember all this. Like I'm inserted employee object, student object, contract employee object. If I'm inserting different type of objects, I cannot remember and retrieve it correctly. So to avoid that confusion, and also you can say that since I'm not mentioned the type, while I'm trying to retrieve it, like I'm trying to retrieve it based on index, get of 0, get of 1, likewise I'm retrieving based on the index. So what happens is here I need to cast it. So we'll be getting the object type and I have to cast that object. Here this in the parenthesis, what I have done is this is called as casting. So here in the first case is here I have cast is to int type. Next, when I retrieve the string value, I have to cast it to string. So this is the problem when we are not mentioning the type of object with the list will be holding. So there comes the use of the generics. So here in the second case, you can see that list of string, list2 equal to new array list of string. So here I have said that my list2 is going to hold only string objects. It can be integer, anything. One thing you have to note here is we can have only collection of objects. Primitive data types, we are not using in it. Sorry, we can have both. I'm sorry, we can have both in this case. So here what I have used is string. So here I have made a list2, which is going to hold n number of string objects. So here you can see I have added the first value. Then the second thing what I have done is I have mentioned the index and I have inserted it. We can directly insert the value so that it will be automatically taking the next indexes. Otherwise, we can give the index and add the value to that particular index. So in this case, what happened is when I tried to add other than string, it showed an error. You can say that list of string is not applicable for the argument int. So in the compile time itself, the checking is being done. That is, there is a strong type checking which is happening when we are mentioning the generics. And also, while I want to retrieve the data, there is no need of casting. I can just simply give the string name equal to list.get of 0. There is no need of casting, and there is also type checking. This is the benefit when we are using the generics. So I hope I'm clear with the generics. Then
Yeah, I think we discussed with respect to list also. Yeah, now we'll just discuss the main difference between list and set, and then we'll move to map. I think most of the audience have been asking about map interface.
Okay, so set also will be created like set of string s equal to new hash set. Hash set is a class which implements the set interface. So we can create like hash set of string. Like we created array list, like we can create hash set. There also the method is add and get. So what's the difference is like major difference between list and set. In the list, duplicate values are allowed, but in set it is unique. There is no duplicate values. Then null values are allowed. That is, we can insert one or more null values in the case of a list, but for set only one null value is allowed. Then the insertion order, that is, it is an ordered structure. It is an ordered collection. List is ordered. That is, the insertion order is maintained, but for set, insertion order is not maintained. Then iterator, actually we can loop both the we can loop all the collection using the for each loop as well as iterator. So there are different types of iterator which we have, and for list we can iterate it using a normal iterator or a list iterator, and for set we are using only the iterator. We can iterate it only using the iterator. And the underlying data structure, in the memory, what happens is in the list we are making use of the data structure array, and for set the internal data structure used is map. So these are the major difference between list and set. Even if you don't remember all the other things, you have to remember at least two. That is regarding to the insertion order and the duplicates. These are the major of all the differences. The major differences regarding to insertion order and duplicates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in any interviews, usually the interviewer expect at least two differences should be answered. So even if you're not able to answer with respect to data structure and all those things, I mean, at least about the duplicate value and insertion order will be really helpful. Right. So yeah, let's move on to the next topic.
Should we go for map directly?
Maybe we can go to the map, I guess, because we are running out of time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So map, as we said, for map, we are having the key value pair. And here we'll be using Java objects as a key and the value. So here I'm used a hash map. So here you can see map string comma string. That is my key and the value. Key is also a string type and the value is also string type. That is being mentioned over here. String equal to new hash map. Hash map is a class which implements the interface map. And the two methods which we are used is put and get. To insert the value, we use the put method, and to retrieve the value, we use the get method. Then here, the values can be repeated, but the keys cannot be repeated. Keys need to be unique because based on the keys only, we are going to retrieve the value. So key needs to be unique and values can be repeated. Also, only one null key is allowed. Only one null key is allowed, but for values, there can be a number of null values. So this is how we insert. the key, map dot put key and the value.
Hey, Adra, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could you please briefly explain about that null key? I mean, only one null key can be explained. I'm pretty sure most of them might be confused with that.
Okay, that is for values. For example, I can have put n1 null, a2 null. Likewise, I can give different for like more than one null value I can insert. But for key, it is that I can insert only one null key, and it will be indexed to 0th position. The null key will be indexed to 0th position, and I cannot do like map dot put null abc null qwe. Likewise, I cannot give only one null key is allowed in this case.
Right. So the people who are listening to us right now, I mean, if you can just open your Eclipse or any editor and just start typing these programs, this is going to be really helpful, because we will be able to help you out if you're getting any sort of errors. So just a FYI, I mean, who have been watching this, please try to open your Eclipse or any editor and start typing this program, so that this is going to help you a lot. Yeah, let's continue, Adra. Let's move on. Yeah.
So list and set, how we iterate is we'll be just iterating the values. There's only one way in which we iterate it, with the help of the values for list and set. But for iterating map, there are 3 different ways in which we can iterate the map. So one is like entry set iteration, then next is key set, and then we can iterate the values. So what happens is like when we insert a map, it will be stored as entry objects. The key value pair and some other information also will be stored as an entry object in the memory. So if I want to retrieve the entire key value pair from the map, I can use the entry set. We can make use of entry set iteration. That is the map, this key value pair plus some other information will be stored inside the memory as an entry object. So here we'll be pulling out the entry object from the map. So here you can see that map dot entry set. That is from the map we are pulling out all the entry set. And how we iterate it? This is how we iterate a for each loop. So here you can see that I'm getting the each entry from this entry set. So here you can see I've inserted 4 key value pairs. So here in the entry set I'm having 4 entry objects would be there. So entry objects, 4 entry objects. So this is to represent a single entry object, map dot entry of string. That is my key value type. That is a single entry object. I am retrieving the single entry objects from the entry set and I'm iterating it. So from the entry object, I can get, what is this? E dot get key and E dot get value. So I'm getting the key value pair in the entry object and iterating the entry object. I am retrieving the key and the value. That is E dot get key and E dot get value. That is how we iterate a entry set. Then moving on. This is one easy. The other 2 are actually the easiest ways. That is to iterate using the key set and the values. So from the map, what I have done is from the map I've got the entry set. That is a key value pair. Now I can retrieve only the keys or only the values from the map. So that is being done in the second case. Here you can see that map dot key set. Here I will be getting all the keys, only the keys. The 4 keys will be retrieved using the key set. And each key here is a string type. So string key. That is here I'm retrieving each key in my key set and I'm printing out the key. That is the value will be printed. And with the help of the key, I can get the value. That is get of particular key I'm providing. So here I'm giving like get of A1. Then it will give the value ABC. If I give dot get of A2, I'll be getting the value QWE. That is how we iterate using a key set. From the map, we are retrieving only the keys that is using the key set. Key set will be giving only the keys from the map, and each key can be iterated and print out. And also with the help of the key, I can retrieve the value, that is get of particular key, then the corresponding value will be retrieved. That is using the key set. So mostly we'll be using this key set thing only. We don't go for entry or object to, since it makes it a bit complex. So mostly we'll be using the key set. Then there is an option for iterating the values as well, only the values. So from hash map dot values. So it will be retrieving only the values. So what I've done is string value. That is a for each string value in the set of values, just print out the values. So when the question comes like, how can you iterate the map? There are three possible ways, that is using the entry, then the key set and the values. And mostly in the projects program and all, you'll be finding using the key set. You can see entry as well, but mostly it will be iterated using the key set.
Yeah, so let's hold a moment. So people who are watching us, I mean, do you want to repeat any point which we discussed till now? I mean, especially collections is little complex compared to the basics of concept. Is there any topic or anything which you guys want to ask to us? I mean, maybe we'll try to help you out. Can you just type in? I mean, is things clear? Basically, we discussed about the map, how we insert the value in a map, and the three ways by which I mean we can retrieve those values. So just curious to know, I mean, is there anything which we need to repeat? Can you please type in? Okay, so there was one question that's been asked: why have we used the final keyword? I mean, why did we use the final keyword? I mean, yeah, while iterating, why did we use final map dot entry or final string?
Yeah,
Why the final keyword? Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry for that, because the actual program I will show. Map example. This is the same program. What happened actually was like, I used it in my project. I just copied this program to my project. So in that case, there are so many restrictions. So if I try to not just map, whatever code I just copy to my project and do, the final keyword will come because of that project setting.
Yeah, I mean, in real projects, we always use the keyword final itself. I hope that that's been clear because we had discussed the same thing last time. Because no one should be allowed to change it. That's the main reason why we use the keyword final. Yeah, I mean, this is the simple code just for the learning purpose. Yeah, I think one more question was asked. I mean, retrieving the values from map. Yeah, maybe we can just execute this program if they want to see it. Yeah. Yeah, so these are the main way how we're gonna retrieve it and how we're gonna store it.
So first here you can see the
Right. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so first is the entry set. So here we are printing the key and hyphen value. So here you can select A1 hyphen ABC. Like all the four values are being retrieved here using the entry. Entry, it is like we are retrieving key and the value together. So from the entry, we can get key as well as the get value. So next thing, we have used the key set. So here I have given for printing the key, and next with the help of the key, I'm getting the value. So here you can see like first is the key, A1 is the key, the corresponding value is the ABC. The next is A2, the corresponding value is QW. Likewise, we can, this value is retrieved from the key only. Get of the particular key. Get of A2, it will give QW. Likewise, we are made use of key set. Then for values here, you can see only the values are being printed.
Yeah.
The rest is because of the different manipulations I've done.
Correct. Yeah, I think this is pretty much clear, right? I mean, I don't see any other questions. Okay, so there is one question: how to give null values?
Okay, usually, this we say like there is null key, there's null values and all, but when it comes to a scenario like in a project scenario or something, we are not making use of this because we'll be inserting only the actual keys and the values. These null concept, these ordered concept, these are coming in with respect to the theory questions in the interview.
Correct.
In an actual scenario, we are not going to use null values or null keys.
That's right. I mean, basically, the interview want to know at least we are at least have a basic set of knowledge. So, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, in the real time when we use the project, I mean, we really never use all these things. So I think this part is pretty much clear. Let's move back to the questions and show the questions. I think, yeah, the questions. Okay, yeah, we'll take one last question if anyone wants from this. Uh, let's show the other question set. We'll take one last question and then we'll move here. Is there any question that need to be discussed from 53 to 64?
53 to 64. Okay.
Yeah. Is there any question which need to be discussed? I think pretty much has been discussed. Is there anything which anyone want to discuss? Any choice? I don't see any choices at all. I think we have discussed pretty much. There is no choice. Okay, let's move to the last slide. Yeah, eighth one. Yeah, 65 to 75. Right. Any choices? These all are little bit advanced topics. So okay, 65. Yeah, and thread. Yeah, let's just touch base the thread concept and then we'll come to 65. Let's touch base the thread. I think someone have been asking about the threads. Yeah.
Okay. Thread is actually a lightweight process, and Java supports multi-threading. That is like with the help of multi-threading, what happens is like more than one part of a program can be executed concurrently. That is, parallel execution is possible. So that is for maximum utilization of CPU. So that if you're having a large program, it can be split into different parts, and each thread will be taking care of each part. That is multi-threading. And so I'm not going deep. There are different states of thread. There are different priorities and all. So the default priority for a thread is 5. And the minimum is 1 and the maximum priority is 10. So that if we are having different threads, and based on the priority, this thread can be executed. So for that only these priorities are there. And there are different ways in which we can create a thread. So there are two different ways in which we can create a thread. One is extending the thread class, and the second one is implementing the interface runnable. Runnable is an interface. When it comes to Java 8, it can be called as a functional interface also, because in runnable interface, there is only single abstract method available with runnable interface. So there are two different ways in which a thread can be created: by extending the thread class and by implementing the runnable interface. So for thread class, first we'll be creating using the thread class. So these are the different constructors which are available: thread of string, thread of runnable, then runnable and string. And the thread class also provides different methods through which we can manipulate the thread, like start, run, wait, notify, interrupt, all these things. There are different methods which the thread class is providing, and also different constructors which the thread class is providing. So the simplest way by creating a thread by extending the thread classes. This is my class public multi-thread extends thread. We are extending the thread class, and we need to provide the implementation for the method run, which is present in the thread class. Here you can see run is a method allowed, which is provided by the thread class, and we need to give the implementation for the run method. And from the main here, you can see that I'm creating object for this class multi-thread. So here I'm trying to create 5 threads making use of the thread class, and we'll be creating, okay, here I'm creating a T1, that is first object is being created, and I'm calling T1.start. Start is also a method which is provided by the thread class. So what happens is when I call the start method, the control will go to the run method. Okay, this is how you can simply create a thread by extending the thread class. We need to provide the implementation for the run method, and we need to create the object and call the start method. When the start method is called, the control will go to the run. So in this case, what happens is in the loop, I'm creating 5 threads. Hope I'm clear with this.
Yeah. So one question, I think basically in automation also, everyone use one of the most common method is sleep, thread.sleep. Could you please explain that method also? I mean, what does thread.sleep does?
Okay.
So basically for the halting the execution, right?
Yeah, like if I'm having multiple threads and I want, like, for few seconds or something, that thread should not execute. So that in that case, I can call thread.sleep method, and we can provide the time in milliseconds, I believe. Here I'm not provided the format.
Yeah, in milliseconds.
Yeah, in milliseconds we can give the like time for how much time that thread should be sleeping. So after that the time reaches, the thread will go back to execution. That is a thread.sleep.
Yeah. So I think
just to pause an execution, just to pause the thread for some time, we are using the sleep method.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's go back to the questions, I guess, and then we'll take a few more questions.
One more runnable interface.
I think we are running out of time. Let's take a few more questions. So I wish we could have. Yeah, next set of questions, please. I mean, any questions? I think we only have left 15 minutes. So someone have mentioned. What is the question number 58? I mean, few people have mentioned 58.
Exception propagation.
Yeah, this has been asked again and again. 58.
Okay.
And we also have one question. What is the difference between sleep and wait? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll discuss propagation, exception propagation. I mean, anyway, it's fine. I mean, maybe we can discuss the difference between sleep and wait and then come back. Anything is fine.
Maybe I'd go for wait because already I've told about sleep.
Correct. Yeah, we'll go for wait. That'll be absolutely fine.
Okay. Basically, the sleep is like we are providing the time, and for that particular milliseconds what we have given, it will pause the execution. Once the time is over, it will come back to the running state, runnable, and then the running state. What happens for wait is like it is basically used for inter-thread communication. Like one thread will be waiting for another thread to complete its execution. So likewise, the wait is basically when in a multi-threaded environment for inter-thread communication, the wait method is being used. And also, if it is having any locking mechanism, so when a thread is when a wait method is called, it will be released, the thread will be releasing the lock because it is going to wait until it get a notification to to get back to execution. It is like it has to wait. It's not that we are providing in a particular time. Till that time only it is not waiting. So it will be waiting indefinitely maybe. So we cannot say that it for this only like for 5 seconds it will be waiting and then it will get back to execution. We cannot say like that. So what happens is like if it is holding any lock, it will be releasing the lock. But for sleep, what happens is if it is holding an lock, it will be holding it because we are mentioning the time and it will come back to the running state after the particular time. This once it is holding the once the thread is in wait state, it will come back to execution only when it gets the notify or notify all message from the thread. That's a major difference if we can say.
Yeah. Let's take the question number. The question
50,
yeah.
58.
58 and then 71.
71.
Yeah. What was 71? Difference between stack and heap.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll go to exception propagation. Like exception propagation, in this case, what comes is that basically exception propagation comes in the case of unchecked exception, because by default, checked exceptions are not propagated. Exception propagation happens in the case in
Okay,
default.
Adra, sorry to interrupt. Can you please zoom in a little bit? Yeah, fine. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So here what happens is like we are having a call stack over here. Here you can see like I'm having M and P, different methods are there. So it comes in a like calls. Actually, the method and all will be stored in the stack only. So whenever a method is being called, a stack will be created. A particular area will be allocated in the stack for that particular method. So what happens? It's like in the call stack, I'm having one method, and below that one method, below that one method. Likewise, I'm having a n number of methods in a call stack. So if the first one, in the first method, an exception is raised. Okay, and if it is not handled there, what happens? It calls to that exception automatically propagates to the next one in the call stack. That is one below the other. The exception will be propagated until it is handled. Okay, if it is raised in the first method and if it is not handled in the first method, what happens? It goes to the second method. Even if it is handled there, then the propagation stops there. If it is not handled there, and if there is another method, the exception automatically propagates to the next method. That is in the call stack, the exception will be propagated until it is being handled. It is not necessary that the method which is raising needs to handle. Any one method in the call stack should be handling the exception. That is exception propagation, and by default only unchecked exceptions are propagated. Checked are not propagated. There are mechanisms to propagate, but by default it is not propagated. So here you can see like here I'm having three methods M, N, and P. So what happens here is from the main I'm calling the method P. From P it is calling N, and from N it is calling M. So what happens here is like the control comes to P, then here you can see that N is called, it comes to N. From here M is called this, so my control is now in method M. So here a division by 0 is happening. You can see there is a code for division by 0. So here an exception have been raised. But what happens in M? There is no mechanism, try catch, no handling is being done. Only the exception is raised. So what happens is it goes to the method which it has called. That is, it comes to the exception is propagated to N. Here also there is no mechanism. There is no exception mechanism which is being done. So what happens? The exception propagates to the next one in the call stack. So that is, it comes to method P. Here what happens is the exception is handled. And here you can see the output will be exception handled. So here I'm calling the object.p. So it goes to N, then to M. From M an exception is raised. It is propagated to N. And again it is propagated back to P. and it is handled in P. Here you can see the output as exception handle, and then the last one, normal flow. So this is exception propagation. It will propagate until it is being handled.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, until it's been caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the similar question that been asked, and also in automation also this is very widely used in fact. Yeah, let's move on to the question number 71. And to the audience, tomorrow also we have a session starting from 10 a.m. to 11:30. So basically we're going to discuss about Git and how to do the Git handling. Most of you will be aware of it, but again, something with respect to the interview and something with respect to hands-on. So just an awareness. I mean, tomorrow 10 a.m. also we're gonna have sessions. So yeah, let's move to the question number 71. Yeah, the difference between stack and
heap. So stack and heap are the memory areas available. So stack, with regards to memory, it is like stack. It is used by one thread of execution. That is, each thread will be having its own stack. One thread will be having its own stack, another thread will be having its own stack. Likewise, it is used only by a single thread. For heap, it is like it is shared. The heap will be shared across the different threads. The other thing is like each copy for each thread. Then the access is stack cannot be accessed by other thread because it is just one thread will be having its own space, the other thread will be having its own space. It is not shared, so that one thread cannot access the other. But for heap, it is like it is globally accessible. Whatever it is stored in heap, it can be accessed by n number of threads. Then memory manager management, it is like last in first out. Stack is like last in first out because it's like a stack. Example is like a pile of plates that last we put on top and we take it from the last one itself. So that is last in first out. And for heap, actually the memory is like there are different generations, like old generation and young generation. Again, the young generation is divided into different, like hidden space, survivor, likewise. It is based on generation. Heap is based on generation, young generation, old generation, likewise. I'm not going deep into that. So one is LIFO, that is last in first out, and the heap is based on generation. And the lifetime is like stack is for each thread. So once that thread completes its execution, that stack will be released. So that it is for only single thread until the execution, till from the time a thread starts till the time it ends. And the heap is like till the execution of that application or program is completed, the heap will be available. The usage is like when we create methods, we'll be having the local variables. So these will be stored in the stack. The method created values and all those things will be local variables, and all those will be stored in the stack. And when we are creating an object, like earlier you saw like creating string with the help of literal and new operator. And we are creating object for the class. So all this, when the objects are being created, it will be stored in the heap. When we are creating the local variables and all, it will be stored in the stack. These are the major difference between stack and heap.
yeah. So let's take back the questions again. So again, people in YouTube and Zoom, please type in the question which you guys want to get discussed. So there is a question 73 has been asked, basically serialization and deserialization, and also transient variable. Interesting. Okay, so we'll take both questions and then we can wind up. Yeah, 73 and 74, and then we can wind up the session.
So serialization, like, it's the process by which we are converting an object into a byte stream. Serialization, we are converting the object to byte stream. And when we are converting that byte stream back into the object, that is known as deserialization. Converting object to byte stream and byte stream to object, that is serialization and deserialization. For serialization to have means if we need to serialize a class, we need to, that particular class need to implement the interface serializable. So here you can see I'm having a class student, which implements the interface serializable, and no other manipulation, just ID and name is there. And here I'm trying to serialize that class student. That is, I'm converting the student object to byte string. So here I'm created the object for that student S1. Then to convert it into a byte string, first we need to have a text for that. That is the output stream for that. That is a file output stream. Then we have the object output stream. And we have object, that is output stream object, that is out.write object of S1. Actually, this out.write object of S1, this is the one that converts my object S1 to byte string, and it will be written into the file f.text. So that is being done over here. This output object output stream dot write object of the class instance of the class. This is the thing which convert my student object into byte string. So here also you can see that last I'm closing the screen. If I'm using if in the case of a try, here I am not used any try catch, but if there is any try catch, this code out.close would come in the finally. Okay, because it is a closing the stream, like a cleanup code, so it will come in the finally. So this is how you serialize a class. The class should implement serializable. Only then you can serialize that class. You'll have the file output stream, object output stream, and object output stream dot write object of the class object. So this will convert it into serializable. That is, it will convert it to byte string. And here you can see that I'm trying to convert that back. So my byte string, the values were written in the f.text. And I am using the, now it is the object input string. For deserialization, it is the object input string. So here you can see that here I'm casting it to student and in dot read object. This is the thing which converts my byte string to object. Here I'm getting back it as student object. This read object, object input stream dot read object. It is the method which does the deserialization. And here I get I got my object student, and I can access the variables in that. This is deserialization. So what is transient variable is like, suppose I want to, in what happens in the case of here, you can see that my class had ID and name, and these both were serialized. So if I want to avoid any variable from serialization, I can use the keyword transient. If I use transient along with the variable, those values won't be serialized. Instead, if I made this ID as transient, what happens is when I display, I won't get the value 211. Instead, it will be providing me with the default value 0. That is transient variable to avoid serialization. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, so I think we discussed it, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. So any questions? I mean, let's not discuss anything more today. We are left with just 1 minute. Any questions? I mean, we can take any questions right now. We have left with just 2 or 3 minutes. Please type in any questions. I know this has been a very hard topic. I mean, these are not that easy. All right, so I think that's it. We are on time. 11:30 itself. Just one question I can take: how to compare two lists? Yeah, that can be the last thing. Maybe we can answer.
I don't know. I'm making it complex.
Yeah. I mean, things are going more complex. So, so to the audience, I mean, we can take this as a different session. In fact, comparing to list and all.
Because it
So
makes
we'll
use
take,
of comparator and all those things.
yeah,
Which goes,
comparator interface, and also we need to explain more about comparator interface and all those things. So
yeah.
we'll take this as a different session. So thank you all for watching this. It's been a great audience this time again. So we'll catch up tomorrow 10 a.m. Once again, thanks to Pradiduni team, and also a big thanks to you, Adria, for taking this topics. It's been a great journey for the last 2 weeks. So thank you all for joining. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye.